Been freed. Josh Holt, who was in Venezuela, he was in prison for 2 years.
I just want to welcome you to the Oval Office, welcome you to the White House. You've gone through a lot, more than most people could endure.
I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude for you guys, for everything that you've done.
The president took a moment to talk about the ongoing talks with North Korea.
We're looking at June 12th in Singapore. That hasn't changed. It would be a great thing for North Korea.
You may have seen this story. The LA Times headline read, "The Border Patrol Union calls Trump's National Guard deployment a colossal waste." The union president saying really that the deployment hasn't been managed properly.
But NFL fans overwhelmingly support the league's new national anthem policy.
I support the policy, but I don't understand the policy. I don't think anything got solved here.
78th Army Marching Band. All these guys and gals downstairs going to be with us. Of course, it's Memorial Day weekend.
It is an all-American show this morning, an all-American weekend, because it is Memorial Day weekend, and most importantly, it is about honoring those who have served, that have made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms, for allowing us all to do what we do.
That's right.
Here in this country.
We've got the 78th Army Band here. They'll be performing all morning long. We've got the Bone Frog Challenge obstacle course. I don't know if you can see behind us, with pouring rain right now. Our troops still actually, you know what we say in the Army? If it ain't raining, it ain't training. Okay.
Oh, that's good.
So we'll be back out there.
And where are they, Pete? Where are they?
Well, you know what? Because they're smart troops. Okay? They're like, I don't need to unnecessarily get wet. But once we get back on the obstacle course, we'll do it in the rain if we have to.
And it's a tough one. It is, I think, comes from the Navy SEAL training.
Yeah.
All about upper arm strength. So Griff, you're out this morning. You can't participate.
I'm out. I couldn't be happier to have a bad shoulder. And you're right, it's owned and operated by Navy SEALs, very challenging. And many of those SEALs that have trained in that course have gone on to pay the ultimate sacrifice, which we are remembering and respecting this weekend, Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, and we've asked you to send in your photos, so please keep sending them, friends@foxnews.com. This one comes in from Mel, of her cousin's fallen husband, Marine Corporal Brad Payne, killed in Iraq nearly 12 years ago.
And this one from the Cale family, remembering Lawrence E. Cale, who served in the Navy in the Pacific in World War II.
Annie sends this one of Lance Corporal Benjamin Smith, a Marine Scout sniper killed in Afghanistan in 2011. We remember him and all the servicemen and women who lost their lives fighting for this country. We talk so much about barbecue. We've got the band here, but that's all active service. That's all the people that are here. We remember those that are not here on Fox and Friends. We, as you said, keep sending them into us, friends@foxnews.com. Hashtag Proud American, hashtag Memorial Day. We're going to be showing the pictures of fallen heroes and your proud Americans all morning long. That's what the show does. I mean, we're here for you because of the service, so much service you've given.
Absolutely.
And you love this country just like we do, so we celebrate it this weekend.
So please keep sending them in and be with us all morning long. But there's a lot of news that we need to get to as well. A lot going on still with North Korea and the White House. They are sending a team now to Singapore, preparing for what they say is a possible revival of the historic North Korean summit.
This is Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un hold a surprise meeting saying the North is committed to complete denuclearization.
Yes, developments happening in real time. Jillian Turner is live in Washington with the latest developments. Jillian.
Hey guys, so the White House is gearing up to send staff overseas to Singapore, as it had planned to do for several weeks. This is anticipation that the June 12th Trump-Kim summit is going to go forward. A statement from the press secretary reads in part, a pre-advance team for Singapore will leave as scheduled in order to prepare should the summit take place. President Trump putting an even finer point on that sense of optimism last night.
A lot of people are working on it. It's moving along very nicely. So we're looking at June 12th in Singapore. That hasn't changed. And it's moving along pretty well. So we'll see what happens.
This in spite of the fact that just 2 weeks ago, the White House was stood up by their North Korean counterparts. They traveled to meet in advance of the summit. Also breaking this weekend, a surprise meeting between the leaders of North and South Korea yesterday morning. They met to discuss plans for the upcoming summit as well. Now, on the heels of that meeting, South Korean President Moon reaffirmed Kim is committed to a face-to-face meeting with President Trump and to complete denuclearization of the entire Korean peninsula. But here in Washington, there's some angst. A lot of people worried about the concept of denuclearization. Experts have been cautioning that the U.S. and the North have pretty divergent views on what exactly this term means and what it entails. They say it's imperative the two sides agree to a common understanding and set mutual expectations before the president and Kim come face to face.
We're going to have to get it right. Thank you,
Important
Jillian.
points.
Thanks, Jillian.
I think this administration has been pretty clear about what they want and what they don't want. It's like, we won't do what was done during the Iran deal. No money up front, no concessions up front. You better be verifiable. We're talking get rid of your nukes, no pallets of cash. And we have to have snap inspections, international observers. They've even said U.S. observers. I mean, I think that's a great point. If you don't have our eyes on North Korea's nuclear process, verifying that every ounce of that material they had and ability to development is gone, then it's not a good deal. And that's the difference between the rhetoric right now and what it'll come down to.
They are on the same understanding before you ultimately get to Singapore and sit across the table from each other and make that deal and shake those hands. You remember back in 1986, we talked about this yesterday, learning from history, Ronald Reagan dealing with Gorbachev at the time and trying to end the Cold War and getting them to denuclearize. And he ended up walking away once he got to Iceland. So he went all the way over there. And a lot of people said he was the one that was embarrassed in the end.
Yeah.
So you learn from that and you say, we got to make sure we're on the same page before we make that trip.
Well, and, you know, Pete talking about the president keeping his eyes on the denuclearization, that being the prize. The president has also kept his eyes on freeing hostages from the worst places in the world, North Korea. And the news yesterday breaking on this show, the release in Venezuela of Joshua Holt.
That's right. Sometimes there's news you weren't tracking at all. I mean, I wish I'd known about the plight of Josh Holt, but a citizen from Utah who had been held by the Venezuelan government for 2 years. Thankfully, his representatives like Orrin Hatch and Bob Corker and others had stayed focused and fought to get him freed. Well, it turns out the president played a big role at the very end, and last night was there for a very emotional moment.
So if you missed watching this happen last night at the Oval Office, watch this.
I just want to welcome you to the Oval Office, welcome you to the White House.
I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude for you guys, for everything that you've done, for the support of my wife through those 2 years. They were very, very, very difficult 2 years.
Mr. President, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. This wouldn't have happened without you. When you look back over your tenure in the presidency, this is just one of the many great things you're doing. We love you, boy, and we just want to support you every way we can.
I appreciate it.
I just want to say thank you to you personally for everything that you've done, as well as the State Department.
Not really the great vacation that I was looking for, but just so grateful for what you guys have done and for thinking about me and caring about me, just a normal person. So it really touches me, and thank you.
You've been very brave, actually. You've been incredibly brave. We saw what was happening inside of that prison. So you really have been very, very brave.
All right, so to tell you Josh Holt's story just in the past 2 years, he went over there 2 years ago. He was a Mormon missionary, but he went over there to meet his wife, 26 years old. He's from Riverton, Utah. He was accused of compiling weapons. That's what the Venezuelan government says. So they put him behind bars. They put him in prison for 2 years. This has been a work in process, as you know, Griff. That's why you have the senior senator there, Orrin Hatch of Utah, who has been working with Bob Corker and others to get this guy released. It has been a long process, obviously. Orrin Hatch there with Josh Holt's mother, hugging each other. And President Trump, once he stepped in as well, they were able to free him. They didn't ask for anything in return from the Venezuelan government. And so last night was a big moment for the whole family, but also for everyone that worked so hard to make this happen.
Well, and that's a key point. I mean, the context of all this, listen, Venezuela was hoping to use Holt as a bargaining chip to ease sanctions already enforced against Venezuela. The president not only getting Holt freed, but also the administration is not moving away from lightening those sanctions out there. So that is a significant win in and of itself, aside from obviously Holt's release.
Yet another forgotten man who is remembered because this president has stayed focused on fighting for U.S. citizens around the globe who deserve to come home.
17 civilian hostages under the Trump administration so far have been released from other countries. So that is great news for the United States. During states of emergency as subtropical storm Alberto picks up steam along the Gulf Coast. Residents preparing for the worst, filling sandbags as flooding poses the greatest threat. Alberto, the first storm to be named ahead of hurricane season, is expected to make landfall sometime overnight. Also, this heroic teacher visiting the school where he was shot right after his hospital release. We were just getting these photos, and that's Jason Seaman, shown here at Indiana's Noblesville West Middle School after receiving a call from President Trump praising his bravery when all this went down. According to a local station, the 7th grade teacher shot in his stomach, hip, and arm while tackling the student gunman who is now in custody. 13-year-old Ella Whistler, also shot, is in critical but stable condition. Seaman on Twitter calling her a, quote, tremendous young lady, encouraging people to donate to her GoFundMe page. A student also setting up a page for Seaman, raising money for his medical bills. Of course, you can head to foxandfriends.com if you want to donate as well, and please do that. Also this morning, Pearl Harbor's USS Arizona Memorial in Honolulu is closed indefinitely. Officials shutting it down after noticing cracks, proving the structure isn't being supported properly. Engineers are figuring out ways to repair the damage in hopes of eventually opening it back up. Other areas of Pearl Harbor do remain open. And a true show of patriotism. Fans at a high school softball game take over when they learn that the national anthem will not be played before the game. Watch what they did. Love that. They just decided to sing it anyway. The Fresno, California announcer saying that the anthem was played before an earlier game, which is why they were not playing it again. That's according to officials. It will now play ahead of every single game.
You know, having played a lot of sports games, it is common on a doubleheader to only play the anthem on the first game. But maybe we now live in a world where we're more conscious of the fact that it's said or not said, stand or don't stand. And so fans are probably saying, hey, we're going to say it too.
Yeah, I like that.
I love that. Yeah.
Taking it in their own hands.
That's right.
All right. The media running wild with this LA Times headline about Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd.
Graduates. Interesting idea. He joins us. We'll debate it live. Coming up.
Headline about Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd calling President Trump's National Guard deployment to the border a colossal waste, making major news this weekend. But is that really what he meant, or is the media twisting his words? Well, joining me now to set that record straight is the president of the National Border Patrol Council, President Brandon Judd. Brandon, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
You believe you were taken out of context. Why?
Well, the headline, get beyond the headline, read the actual article. I mean, the quotes, I did give those quotes. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But the quotes were, in fact, taken out of context. What I was talking about is I was talking about the deployment of our current Border Patrol resources, and if we were deploying those resources correctly, would we actually need the National Guard? Nobody praised the president more than I did in any media that I know of for the decision to send the National Guard. The National Guard has been a huge benefit to the Border Patrol in the past, and we expected it to be a benefit again for us this time around. But if you look at the DHS response to what I said, I mean, they even admitted that this deployment is not being used the same as it has been used in the past. And they went as far as coming up with something like having the National Guard look into Mexico as spying. Well, right now, as we speak, there are National Guard that are looking at cameras, that are controlling cameras that are looking into Mexico. So are they spying? That's just not true. So, I mean, even DHS admitted that this deployment is not the same as it was in the past.
Okay, so back up, Brandon, for a second. So you're saying essentially that as far as a force multiplier, which is the intent of the Guard deployment in and of itself, it's not being used properly to fix the problem. So my question is, how do we fix the problem?
Well, if you look at the way we've used the National Guard in the past, when we have the National Guard there, they've been in our lookout and observation posts, they've been in our static positions, they've been in our control room, and what they do is they free up those resources that otherwise have to do those jobs to allow us to go out and patrol the border. But right now, if you look at our control rooms, whereas we used to have 3 agents in the control room, we now still have those same 3 agents, just another 3 National Guard Guard's people. And I just use 3 just as an example because each control room is different station to station. So we're not freeing up those resources. And again, this is not a President Trump issue. President Trump made that decision to send the National Guard, which was the right decision. It was the proper decision, especially as we continue to see these numbers rise in our apprehensions.
Right.
President Trump gave us all the momentum we needed to do the job. It was the Obama holdovers that failed to follow through on the momentum that he gave us.
Right. Okay, so you say who's responsible are the management, these Obama holdovers. What is your message to President Trump on how to manage this issue?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, he's got the political appointees are the right people, but this swamp is very murky, and it's a very big swamp in DHS. You know, we talk about the FBI and how it's been politicized. Well, DHS has been politicized since its inception. Immigration is a hot topic. Secretary Nielsen is a very intelligent individual, Commissioner McClellan, but it's going to take time for them to drain the swamp of all those individuals that were against President Trump and those individuals that continue to get promoted within our agency.
So, Brandon, yesterday we had Deputy Commissioner Ronald Vitello on this program. He pointed to more than 4,000 arrests because of this deployment, which has benefited. Are you disagreeing with the case he made yesterday on this show?
I'm not completely disagreeing that the National Guard has been a help. They have been a help. But the problem is, I mean, the agents, when they read that and they heard about that, I got a huge outpouring from the agents saying, look, they're just cooking the books. I got text messages after text messages saying that the National Guard, as long as they're quote unquote on paper doing an operation, even if they're not there, when an apprehension takes place, they get credit for that apprehension. And so those numbers are completely skewed.
All right, Brandon, thank you for clarifying what you had told in the LA Times and also bringing us up to speed on what's happening down on that border. It's such a crucial issue. 1,600 National Guard troops deployed so far, another 750 coming. Brandon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, it's the historic vote making international headlines. Ireland moving to repeal its abortion law, a big shift for a country made up of many Catholics. Is this a sign that religious, especially Christianity, is becoming more progressive? And is that a good thing? Our interfaith panel here to discuss. And is it time to reinstate the draft? One author says it's the best way to fight entitlement among new graduates. He'll join us live. Don't go anywhere.
I wish these games were earlier. They're always so late for the morning show. 2 of the greatest words in sports, Game 7. And we've got 2 of them coming up. The Golden State Warriors forced it with a decisive win last night, 115-86 over the Houston Rockets. Their Game 7 will be played Monday night in Houston, and almost record number of three-pointers hit last night in that game. But first, the Boston Celtics and Cleveland Cavaliers face off in Boston for a spot in the NBA Finals tonight. LeBron James is hoping to compete for an NBA championship for the 8th straight season. Wow. Game 7 at Boston Garden, always great. And start your engines. The 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500 is today. 33 drivers are hoping to finish the day by chugging the traditional glass of milk in Victory Lane. The competition is set to be the final race of Danica Patrick's historic career.
And what a career she has had. Thanks, Pete. All right, well, is it time to reinstate the draft? A New York Post op-ed argues that American students graduate school with a sense of entitlement, and the best way to fight that is with mandatory military service.
Our next guest says students, quote, need to be taught that the world owes them nothing, that they need to take responsibility for their lives, and I can't think of a better way of doing this than compulsory military service.
The author of that op-ed is also the author of the new book, The Republican Workers' Party. Frank Buckley joins us now to explain. Frank, thank you very much for joining us this morning. First of all, I love your premise. I understand where you're coming from on this, but then the logistics of a country of 300 million people giving 1 year of compulsory military service, we see it work great in countries like Israel that have an existential threat. How would it work, and how would you keep it from ballooning into a big federal behemoth that further indoctrinates kids? Maybe it doesn't get held to military service.
Well, you know, it's not just Israel. It's a lot of other countries as well. I mean, countries that are fairly Pacific. And it's not just about war. It's about really adding an extra year of education. I mean, right now, it's compulsory education, K to 12, K to age 16. And I'm saying okay, what if we added one extra year? Because what that would do would be to teach our students something they don't get from their K-12 education, which is a sense of responsibility, a love of the country, and also the idea that we're all part of one American family, right? I mean, you know, on Memorial Day, maybe we should remember that the one thing which really serves to unify the country more than anything else has been service in the military. People in the military have better values and a stronger sense of identification with the country. And one extra year of effectively schooling in the military would not be a bad idea then.
Well, let's get back to the original problem and why you wanted to write this piece, because you say other than education being there to inform people and educate them, you say it was supposed to instill a love for our country, as you've talked about, unite us by bringing people of every race, of every class together. You say education is not doing that. So talk to us about the root of the problem, and if it isn't a draft, because the reality is we don't have a draft, what is an answer to that problem?
Well, I mean, you know, public schools are supposed to do a couple of things. One is educate our kids, and they don't do that very well. I mean, we're an honorary member of the third world as far as that goes. But the other stuff is the stuff that they used to do. I mean, public school used to be the most American thing about America. And you'd get out of public school learning some pretty good values. And now the teaching corps has completely abandoned that mission. Where you would find it would be in the military. So I'm saying one extra year, you know, up to now it's age, you know, to age 16, add another year.
Frank, it's a great idea, and, you know, to really teach those who have not participated in service what it's all about would be great. But do you really believe, with the culture of our public schools today, that you're going to have these teachers, particularly in the latter years, encouraging their students to really get fired up to go serve their nation in the military in this culture?
No, not at all, and that's the point. The teacher corps, the National Education Association will be completely opposed to that. Why? Because it would teach a love of America, it would teach personal responsibility, all the things they hate. So yeah, all the more reason why we should do it. The only people I feel sorry about in all of this would be the drill instructors.
You and me both. So what, they'd go to basic training, basic military service near where they live? Is that the concept?
That's the idea, basically. One extra year.
One extra year, infuse the values that public schools are not giving right now. It's a very interesting idea. We'll see if that catches on.
Well, and if you're not going to join the military, get to know these men and women, because as you said, they are outstanding individuals, and they are what make this country so great. Frank Buckley, interesting piece if you haven't already read it. Thanks for being with us this morning, and have a great weekend with your family.
Thanks, Frank.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, well, former Obama DOJ official Sally Yates claims the DOJ operates free of politics. Really? Well, Congressman Ron DeSantis here to respond coming up.
And it is a historic vote making international headlines. Ireland moving to repeal its abortion law. Big shift for a country made up of many Catholics. Is this a sign that religion, especially Christianity, is becoming more progressive? And is that a good thing? Our interfaith panel, they are wonderful. They are back with us this weekend. It's a conversation and a debate you do not want to miss. That's coming up.
Ireland, as the country voted to repeal a law banning abortion, some in the U.S. media marking this as a victory. Listen.
In Ireland, a loud and emphatic yes as voters repeal a constitutional ban on abortion.
The final tally showing overwhelming support for women's reproductive rights in the mostly Catholic country.
This vote marks a dramatic shift in what was once described as the most Catholic country in the world.
So does this move the Catholic faith more to the left as religion becomes more progressive to welcome more people in? But is that a good thing, or should we stick to the original tenets? That's the core question here. Should religion stay conservative to the core tenets, or follow the progressive trends of society? Let's bring in our religious panel to discuss. Dr. Menez Afridi is a Muslim scholar. Reverend Samuel Rodriguez is the president of the National Hispanic Leadership Conference. Rabbi Abraham Cooper is an associate dean at the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And Father Jonathan Morris is a Fox News religion contributor. Thank you all for joining us this morning. A great panel. I could start it out this way. A Muslim scholar, evangelical pastor, Jewish rabbi, and Catholic priest enter a bar. But we won't. No, I'm just kidding. It would be the start of a great joke. But this is no laughing matter. This is a serious subject. Father John, I'm going to start with you. Sure. Ireland, a predominantly Catholic country. This vote, what is this vote saying about the current status of the Catholic Church?
Well, we should be clear that the leadership of the Catholic Church stood up against the repeal of this amendment. So it wasn't that the Catholic Church has said, no, this is the direction we want to go in. But they did not have the authority or the persuasiveness sufficient in order to say no to this repeal of this amendment. And so it says that, unfortunately, society has moved in this direction so strongly of pro-abortion. You call it what you want. You could say, no, it's just, you know, we're just allowing free choice. But in the United States of America alone, since 1973, we've had upwards of 40 million abortions. 40 million? That is a huge number. And the fact that Ireland, a Catholic country, a Christian country, is going in that direction is nothing to celebrate.
Abraham, you call it a protest vote. Why?
Well, I think what we're looking at in Ireland is an embrace of the EU environment. Ireland's done very well by taking a lead in the European Union. And, as an Orthodox rabbi, it's not for me to comment on what the church should do. But clearly, in a society that has made a move, and now you have a church where it's still the predominant faith, they're still the predominant teachers, but there has to be a shift in terms of persuasion rather than the starting point. Well, these are the rules, you follow them, our way or out the door. It is a pivotal moment.
Samuel, pivotal moment overall as well. From an evangelical perspective, is progressivism creeping into our faith? And if so, what impact is that having on not just Ireland, but America and the world writ large?
Well, the idea of progressive Christianity is oxymoronic in its depiction and its expression. You can't have both progressive Christianity. Let me explain. Christianity is about the gospel. The gospel of Jesus never changes. It's truth, love, grace, hope, and faith. Regardless of the time, the culture, society, truth, love, grace, and hope should never be sacrificed on the altar of political, cultural, or sexual expediency.
Absolutely. Manaz, briefly on this, and I'm going to get your points on another topic as well. What does Islam have to say about abortion and life as it pertains not just to Ireland, but the whole issue?
Well, Islam, like all the other Abrahamic faiths, believes that, there's a value of human life. However, it's also a very practical religion where there have been certain legal scholars that have said that if there is a danger of mother's health or there is some kind of disease, that it is permissible under certain kind of legal situations. It's not that Muslims don't or are promoting abortion at all, but I think that there are certain loopholes in the Islamic law, and there are certain fatwas, which is just a legal opinion from scholars, that do allow it under dire circumstances. And it's a very multi-layered issue. I'm the only woman here on the panel, so I would like to say that it is an issue that's very complex for all women, whether they are pro-abortion or against abortion. I also don't like the term pro-abortion. I don't think anyone is pro-abortion. I think we're all pro-life, and it's about how we see life that's important to us in our faith.
Well, appreciate that perspective. We're going to move on to one more topic, try to get you all to chime in on it briefly. Is the U.S. plummeting birth rate a sign that focus on family values are diminishing? The new stats from the National Center for Health Statistics shows that less babies are being born in the United States. The replacement rate is generally 2 kids per family, but you see those numbers, the number of babies born per year, a sign that the view of families is changing for Catholics as well.
I think so. I mean, I think the sexual revolution has affected the Catholic Church, the United States of America in a profound way, saying sex has nothing to do with procreation. And it's not all about procreation. It's also about the unitive aspect of 2 people coming together in love, no doubt. But when you separate sex from procreation or the openness to life, things change. But there's also very practical political things that are changing in the United States. For example, people are graduating from college with $200,000 of debt, and are they going to get married to somebody who has somebody who has $200,000 of debt and start off a family with $400,000 of debt and have children? It's not easy. That's why politics matter also on very important things like family life.
Abraham, for each of you, I want to get you all in. We don't have that much time left. What is it about birth rate that matters in demographics?
Well, take a look at our 2 allies, Japan and Israel. Japan's very affluent. They're probably going to go from 130 million to 80 million people. They're not bringing children into the world. think they've lost their way in terms of values. Israel, you guys cover them every day. It's under the gun, existential threats. The birth rate among religious and secular people is going up because they have a sense of their past and future. As far as America, it's called the iPhone. This is the me generation. My suggestion is shut the damn thing off and go back to basic values.
Samuel, why do kids matter?
Kids matter. It's a de facto outcome of a constant mockery of the institution of the family. We see that culturally in films and movie and content, in writings and publications, social media. The family now is a joke, and even the idea of a modern family, a traditional family, for whatever, however you want to describe it, is a joke. So it's under assault. Kids matter. It's the future of America, the future of morality and spirituality, the future of our human existence. Indeed.
Mehnaz, you speculate that the economy has something to do with birth rates as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at statistics and if you look at data, women are having kids later. Women have trouble having kids later because they're looking for a professional life. They have to both be working, a man and a woman, or any kind of a relationship. You have to both have incomes. I think the economic factor in the United States makes it very hard for middle class and lower middle class families to have a whole realistic economic plan. And I think that people are getting married later. Even in the Muslim American community, I see this as a big impact.
It's an amazing cultural conversation because in the West, families are having less kids, but a lot of the refugee or immigrant populations moving into those countries are having more kids, which changes the whole religious, cultural, and social dynamic in those countries. It truly matters. We're going to have you guys back, I have a feeling, on future Sundays. Mehnaz, Samuel, Abraham, Jonathan, smart folks, appreciate your faith as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You got it. All right. Well, former Obama DOJ official Sally Yates says Robert Mueller's team is acting fast. Really? Doesn't seem to want to end. Congressman Ron DeSantis here to respond next. And thousands of bikers are about to roar through our nation's capital for a Memorial Day tradition honoring the fallen. We're live at the kickoff of Rolling Thunder. Coming up.
Law to a new level. Really from the beginning of this presidency, President Trump has not observed the time-honored norm that's been in place, at least since Watergate, that there should be a real division between the Department of Justice and the White House.
Former Obama officials on the defense over allegations of a politically orchestrated spy ring to hurt President Trump's campaign. GOP Congressman Ron DeSantis joins us now with his reaction. Good morning, Congressman. Hope you're enjoying this Memorial Day weekend. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. So can you give us your reaction to Ms. Yates there?
Well, a couple things. What she's saying is that there should be a division between Justice and White House. What she's saying is that she thinks elite bureaucrats like her should be independent of any accountability or oversight. And we're seeing that with the Justice Department fighting Congress, we're trying to get facts about how they handled this Trump and Hillary campaign investigations. And so what she is saying is much different than the Constitution that the Founding Fathers set up. And I think she's also somebody that is coming under scrutiny for what we're trying to uncover in Congress because she was involved in the FISA application that has been so controversial. She was involved in the Michael Flynn interrogation in terms of trying to say there was a Logan Act thing. So there's all kind of questions about her conduct, and I think that she's probably best to maybe button it up for a little bit.
And Congressman, will her name come up then? You are a member of the Judiciary and the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. You have the investigation looking into the Clinton email scandal. You're also looking at the FBI informant story. Are you going to talk with her?
So here's where I think she plays in with the Clinton stuff. As you remember, Andrew McCabe, in the portion of the IG report that's been released, McCabe said someone from Sally Yates's office, and McCabe's got credibility issues, but called and said, hey, shut down the Clinton Foundation investigation. This is right during the heat of the election. So that would have come from Sally Yates. So we absolutely need to probe her role in how this Clinton Foundation investigation was spiked. And then, yes, with the informant, remember, this guy, who directed him? Was Justice involved? Who at the FBI was involved? They really have been investigating Trump in some way since the spring of 2016, when Loretta Lynch and Comey decided we're not going to brief Trump's campaign about possible Russian activity. I think that was a deliberate choice because they wanted to get dirt on the future president.
All right, Congressman, switching gears here. I want to get your thoughts on something going on in Florida. A popular grocery store, Publix. If you've ever been to Florida and you've not gone to Publix and gotten one of their subs, they will change your life. But some controversy. So they have now suspended any political giving, making political contributions in the wake of mounting pressure over its support of Adam Putnam, who you know is running as a Republican candidate for governor of that state. He strongly supports the NRA, and he's a congressman. You don't agree with this decision. You say that this is caving into pressure. And just to be clear here, Publix, the grocery store, is given across the board to political causes, not just on the Republican side or to a pro-NRA candidate. But you say they're caving in. This is not the decision they should have made.
Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of their contributions, but they should not let the inmates run the asylum. I mean, people go and shop for groceries. They see a bunch of people laying around. I mean, that's not exactly good for their experience. It kind of brings whole new meaning to the idea that there's a cleanup on aisle 6. So I think when you let the left pressure you into backing down, that's a mistake. And what the left's trying to do is make the Second Amendment toxic. And I think people like me, you know, we need to stand for all of our constitutional rights, including the Second Amendment. But these private companies should not be bullied so easily. I think Publix made a big mistake.
Yeah, they originally said not everything is about guns. We were supporting this candidate because he is pro-business, and that is something that we are supportive of. And now, as you said, that they have backed away from any sort of contribution. So we'll see where all of this goes from here. Great to have you on, Congressman. Great to get your perspective.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thousands of bikers are about to roar through our nation's capital for a Memorial Day tradition. We are live at the kickoff of Rolling Thunder. We all know it. We all love it. That is coming up next.